There is no reason to trust the words of angry people, which make loud and mincing noise despite the great timidity of the mind that lies beneath. There is no reason to regard as true phase found in the works of Livy, a most learned author, a man of great more than good nature. Those things can't be separated. Either his nature was good or well, or it wasn't great. Since I know greatness of soul to be something unshakable, solid to the core, just and firm from the bottom up, such that it can't exist the evil natures. Such terrible and turbulent and lethal things can exist, but they won't have greatness, the foundation of which is strength and goodness. They will give the illusion of greatness with their speech, their effort, and all their external show. They will shout out something that you might think belongs to a great mind, like Caliga, angered the skies because it clamored, interrupted with pantomimes, which he was more eager mimicking than watching. And because this reveals we're terrorized by the thunderbolts entirely too poorly, he summoned Jupiter to battle, and when there was no left, he disclaimed that famous line of Homer, "You throw me, or I'll throw you." What madness that was! Either he thought he couldn't be harmed even by Jupiter himself, or he thought that he could harm even Jupiter. I imagine that his utterance added to the impetus of the mind of those who conspired to kill him, for it seemed the head, the height of forbearance to put up with a man who couldn't put up with Jupiter. Thus, nothing's great or noble in anger, not even when it seems brash, scornful of both men and gods, or if it seems that anger does bring forth greatness of minds in anyone, then so would extravagance, for it likes to be held up by ivory, dressed up in purples and covered in gold. To move lands from place to place, damp up oceans, turn rivers into waterfalls, build forests into air. Then greed too would seem to come from a great mind, for it lies down on heaps of gold and silver, tends fields that are called provinces, holds estates under single managers that stretch out further than what consoles that gets assigned. Lust would seem to come from a great mind, since it swims across straits and castrates whole crowds of boys, goes under a husband's sword with no regard for death. All things, no matter how far they go, how far they extend themselves, are a really small base and lowly. Virtue alone is elevated and lofty. Nothing is great unless also peace. Having dealt up to now with anger, the abstract, its definition and qualities, Seneca's turn into the second half of his treatise towards a pragmatic discussion of how to stop anger from getting the hold of us and how to manage it once it does. He begins with advice to parents on how to raise children so as to produce adults who are not prone to anger, right? Since we have explored the question that results from anger, let's move on to its remedies. These two, I believe, not following into anger state once they're not doing wrong, just as the care of a body. Some therapies deal with maintaining health and others with restoring it, so we ought to use one method to fend off anger, another to express it, another to suppress it. First, as to how to avoid it, we will look at certain things and certain teachings that concerned the whole human life, dividing them up into raising children and what comes after. So children rearing demands of greatest effort, for that effort will return a very great benefit. It is easy to mold minds that are still pliable, but ills that have taken root in us are wrenched only with difficulty. A very great benefit, I say, will come from raising children in a healthy way, but it's difficult program since we must make an effort to nurture anger in them nor to blunt their natural impulses. Careful observation is needed for that which must be supported and that which must be suppressed are nurtured by similar things. And being similar, they can easily fool you even as you monitor them. The spirit flourishes when it is given license and shrinks under the servitude if it shoots up. It is given praise and encouraged to value itself highly. But license and praise also gives rise to arrogance and very angry temperament. We must steer a middle course, pulling back on the reins at one moment, applying the goad the next. Let children's spirits encounter nothing lowly or slavishly. Let them never beg for things in the manner of suppliant, and if they do, let them not gain anything by it. Rather, let gifts be made on the basis of their circumstance, the things they have already done, and the good things they promise to do in the future. In contest with their peers, let's not allow children to be defeated, nor to grow angry. Let's see that they could close acquaintances of those with which they contend, so that they get accustomed to wanting to win rather than to hurt. Whenever they win and do something worthy of praise, let's allow them to hold their heads high, but not to become boastful, for exultation follows rejoicing, and after exultation comes inflated ego and too great a sense of self-worth. We will give them a certain amount of leisure, but we won't undertend them for idleness and laziness. We will keep them far from the influence of the pleasures, for nothing will make adults more prone to anger than a soft and cloying upbringing. Thus, the more an only child is indulged, or the more that permitted to be orphaned, the more corrupt the mind becomes. The one who was never denied anything, whose tears a worried mother wiped away, for those who takes or sakes a babysitter got the blame. We have no resource against the shocks to the system. Don't you see how greater the wrathfulness accompanies a greater fortune? It's clear in the case of the rich, the nobility and office holders, that whenever something light and empty arises in the mind, it gathers momentum like a ship with favorable breeze. So I'm going to add my 2 cents into this. I do believe that Seneca was saying that to some extent you have to teach your children how to have a level of self-control when it comes to anger. Or like he said, if you don't teach your children how to have a level of self-control, their mind could be corrupt, especially if they're prone to being an orphan, or they grow up with a father with no father figure around, and they could basically crash out. So that's what I would like to add to my to this 2 cents over here. But other than that, you should also learn from having self-control yourself. Not everything is meant to be angry. Not everything is meant for you to express anger, because anger can actually stress your mind out, and it could actually cause long-term health issues. Apparently they say anger and stress damages the heart and the liver. So if you want to keep those things running perfectly well, I suggest you do your best not to get angry all the time.